It was a big week of quiet changes. Happy Friday, friends. It's a Friday. It's a Friday, and we are plowing through the month of May. I almost said April, but we are charging through May. We have build coming up on the horizon here, and there was a lot of not great changes at Microsoft this week, and there's a lot of other things else going on, and a lot of questions in the hopper. So why don't we just dive in? Hopefully you all had a wonderful week. Here we go. First off, Hey Copilot is now a thing. So if you have missed talking to Hey Cortana, and hopefully that didn't just fire off a bunch of things on old PCs I have sitting around here. But either way, Hey Copilot is the new, it's the new thing. So now you can talk to your computer, and I'm honestly surprised it took this long for them to get there. And like in the back of my noodly brain, I also wonder too, like how much training do they have to do these days to recognize the phrase "Hey Copilot"? Like you would think that would be relatively easy, right? They had "Hey Cortana." It's not that big of a difference, but I don't genuinely know. I'm sure there's something that has to go on, and maybe one day we'll find out. .NET 10 Preview 4. Now, .NET is a little bit more near and dear to my heart because I've been playing around, doing some minor things with the vibe codings, as they say, although I'm a little bit more technical than that in some respects. But anyways, I've been using .NET more and more lately, so .NET 10 Preview 4 is of relevance. I've been mostly working in .NET 8, but yeah. Anyway, speaking of .NET, by the way, .NET Maui is probably dead. Not like they're going to backtrack and like rip everything out, but there were some pretty significant layoffs this week at Microsoft. They announced 3% headcount. I don't know if they announced it or that is what they are cutting, and which is like 6,000 to 7,000 people. And we don't fully know if that's it. There might be more later, but we'll find out. But Microsoft, yeah, as Miguel here pointed out on the Twitters, he said Microsoft laid off senior years of .NET on Android and key figures of Maui. This might just be the US wave, so perhaps the whole thing is doomed. Yeah, anyways, layoffs always stink. I don't think everybody knows yet if they're being cut or not, but anyways, like they're just never good. Microsoft is over 200,000 employees. I think last number I saw was 228,000. Their rankings have swelled. It doesn't matter though. Like they could have 1 million employees and still cut 5 people, and if you're one of those 5 people, it sucks. So best of luck to all involved. Nothing. There's just nothing fun to say about them. Speaking of whatever, that was a terrible transition by me. But anyways, there was headlines this week about Surface with an ARM processor from AMD is reportedly coming next year. This came from some gaming forums and other places on the internet. And so I just want to point out that, like, yeah, that actually probably is a thing, because if you remember from last year, Reuters reported that, hey, AMD is teaming up. Actually, they're working with Intel maybe, but we don't know if that's all completely there yet. But anyways, AMD from a couple different places has been working on an ARM processor, and so we expect to finally see it. Now, the weird thing is it's called like Soundwave, or that's the code name or something like that. Whether or not this is like a full ARM CPU SoC, we'll find out, but the fact that AMD is expected to be releasing an ARM chip, I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, and it seems like it's going to finally happen. Now, originally, when this was reported last year by Reuters, they were saying it was supposed to come in 2025, which is obviously this year, which I guess it could still happen in the second half of the year. We don't know. Maybe that's when it will be announced, but it may not start shipping until 2026, because the Surface rumor was suggesting that it would be next year when the AMD device would get it. So, other things Microsoft has done, if you use the Bing search API, you're no longer going to be using it. They're killing it effectively, except for some like really large companies. But for the average Joe who might have been using it, nope, it's gone. Microsoft also closed one of their retail stores. So they had 3. I believe that would, my math isn't crazy, but I think they had 3. They subtract 1, that would put them down to 2, and I count them 2 retail stores. That was really like, there's not a ton of news headlines, because especially with build coming up here. And then on the gaming side, so let's jump over to the gaming news. So here we go. So Microsoft announced a new floral collection of controllers and headsets and other wares, if you will. It's not for me, but you know what? It's springtime. Flowery things are in. It's kind of like a Windows XP-esque like background back there. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, Microsoft must make a killing on these things because they ship a lot of controllers. And I mean like a lot of controllers. So they must do relatively well. I don't personally collect them, but I'm sure people do, and that's why they keep shipping these things. They ship a lot of them. Something I'm very excited about, Doom: The Dark Ages, has been received well and is now available. I'm going to be hopefully playing it this weekend, although I got a really busy weekend, unfortunately. I'm hoping to be able to do some slaying this weekend, if you will. The reviews look good, and I think it's going to be a fun game. It's Doom. It shouldn't be some massively deep story. It should be blood, guts, and chains. Well, not chainsaws. That's more Gears of War, but blood, guts, and shotguns, if anything else. So, other things happening. PlayStation 5 sales declined 11%. You can hear everybody screaming, saying PlayStation's doomed or something like that, but not really. Anyways, they sold 18.5 million consoles in the fiscal year ending March 31st, which is down 11% from 20.8 million last year. Still more than Xbox. We don't even know how many Xbox sells because Microsoft never tells us. But so there you go. Everybody's selling fewer consoles, but that's the natural thing. It would be shocking if they were selling more, and especially since the PS5 Pro, I guess, is maybe the reason why they could have sold more, but at a very high price point, over $700 dues. It's not all that surprising. It's not all that surprising. So, on to the questions of the week, which, as a reminder, I post these now on YouTube, and there are a bunch. I think we got a dozen questions, so this is going to be awesome. So, Old Man Retro says, can we convince From Software to do a remaster of the King's Field series? Can we convince them, and will they do them? All we can do is start chanting it every time we get the possibility. I don't know, but... yeah. Johnny Ohio says, hi Brad, can you answer a very important question for me? The Display Widget Center is an app where you can basically access the Asus gaming monitor menu versus reaching behind the stupid monitor with a little joystick to make things easier. My question is the Asus gaming monitor with the model, very specific model, is that compatible with the Display Widget App Center? Oh, Johnny Ohio, I have no idea. I would love to tell you, I would candidly love to have a Rolodex of monitor SKUs in my head and what app compatibility they have, but there is no, I can't candidly say that any reasonable way. So you're from Ohio, I'm from Ohio, maybe if you're in Cincinnati, we can research this together down at Mad Tree or something like that. Dorian River says, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, will it ever be 60 frames per second on Xbox Series X? Can it be done? So... well, not specific to Hellblade 2. You have to remember that people, rightfully so, really want 60 frames per second. I totally get it. I absolutely get it. I enjoy it as well. 30 frames per second is not great anymore, right? 60 FPS is awesome. However, there's no magic sauce you just pour over a game that makes it 60 FPS. It's not like some checkbox, right? Sacrifices have to be made. Efficiencies have to be found. People get really caught up and like, well, what do you mean 60 FPS isn't not going to come at launch? It's going to come with a patch at a later time. It's because it's like, hey, what do you want your developers doing? Do you want them patching bugs or trying to be more performant? Because if they're already at 30 FPS, they'll be like, that's fine for now. We'll update it later. We think we have some ideas. The reality with 60 frames per second, and I'm not saying that it's always 60 frames per second. It could be going from 60 to 120. Whatever the baseline FPS is, to improving it has to come through one of two ways. You either lower the fidelity of the experience or you find optimizations in your own code base. And people typically don't want to slash and burn the graphics because that takes away, especially in Hellblade, right? That is a very immersive game where you need that fidelity. So they need to find optimizations in the code. And it's just think about that for a second. It's okay, we want to improve frame rates. We have all this code base. We have all this stuff. Now we have to optimize it. And you can't just say optimize. If that was it, right? You have to be smart about how the math is done, how the memory is used, right? A lot of it is related to how can we free up memory so that we can do more frames per second? Because, right, a growth in frames per second is not a linear amount of compute, right? If you're getting the higher up there, the more resolution, the more frames you got to be storing, and the more compute that has to have across the entire gamut. It is not easy, and so. Yeah. Can it be done? Absolutely. But the question becomes, at what cost? At what cost will it be done? So, Joviar 3653. I don't know how. Joviar. Do you think the next Xbox will continue to use the tower design, or will go to the classic horizontal box? So this question. The next Xbox feature, quick resume 2. What do you think? I got a great one for that one. So first question, is the next console going to be a tower, right? Or is it going to be more? So like, it's hard to predict that candidly, because this generation we have a tower and we have the traditional like low flat Xbox One looking box with the Series S, right? So we have both. I think they are absolutely just going to go with whatever makes sense. I don't think Microsoft is in chasing like these funky, unique, sculpted form factors. PlayStation 5 certainly has a unique look to it. Xbox was like Soviet bloc era. That is what we were going with. And so I don't think I would, having said all that, I would expect a rigid square design. Now, whether or not that's a tower or something low, it is up to anyone's guess at this point. Mr. PKI says, have you tried out the new Teams feature that prevents screenshots? Does that prevent screenshots when using Teams in the browser at all? I have not yet. So we use this at work a lot. So one of the features that has been announced for Teams is a privacy-focused feature that, like, hey, if you're watching somebody else's monitor, especially when you're doing calls outside of your org, you can't screenshot it, right? That's because there might be sensitive information. That is a genuinely good feature. Have not tried it yet, but it is something that is rolling out. And his second question says, okay, you cannot play Doom today until you... Mr. PK trying to hold me hostage, saying I got to complete Indiana Jones first, but you never listened to us. So what do you think of the new Doom? Mr. PK, I have not downloaded it yet. I'm going to walk out of here, go download it, and hopefully be playing it this weekend. So that is TBD, to be determined. Warren says, do you think the Xbox multi-platform strategy is a ploy to get PS players interested in their games and then come next gen? Say, now you have to play it on Xbox. No, I really don't. Like, here's the thing. Like, I kind of digging my heels in on this because I think Microsoft has come to the same conclusion. Microsoft lost the console wars, if you will, like who's going to sell the most last generation with the Xbox One. Why? Because that is when people started buying digital games. So it's one thing when you had a physical game and you went to a new console like, okay, this doesn't work anymore. So there's no reason to like locking me into the next Xbox or PlayStation because all my games are these physical discs and like these are CDs, those are Blu-rays. They don't work. So what does it matter? But after the PS4/Xbox One, people like myself and probably a lot of people listening here started buying games digitally. Now, when you jump to the next console, having that digital library come with you is a big deal and a very much a digital lock-in. And so I think Microsoft just realizes like, look, people have these libraries and they're locked into it, and like getting people to switch is really hard. And the inverse is true as well. They're like, look, we have all these people on Xbox, they have digital libraries, much like myself, and we have Game Pass, and the likelihood of them switching over to PlayStation is actually pretty low. And so I think they just have realized that and accepted that fate that the console generation was lost, the last generation. And so getting people over to Xbox is actually a lot harder than anybody is really thinking. Like, I don't think most people go to Best Buy saying, I don't know which console I'm going to buy. Like, they're pretty sure they know what they're going to get. And so they just go and walk and grab it, and they don't really look across the aisle, if you will. And I mean that quite literally, because most of the time when you go into Best Buy, it's like blue and green. Sometimes they're like 2 blue and 2 green or whatever, like, rows of stuff. But I think the digital library lock-in is a very real thing, and I think that's just the way that it's going to be. And Microsoft already knows how many next-gen consoles they can sell, and that's basically it. Yo, 3125 Elite Series 3. They have one. I just don't know when it's launching. So we actually, if you look on this very YouTube channel, the video I have pinned was where they had a survey in the Xbox feedback app or wherever that is. And it was all about the Elite Series 3. And so you can kind of pull out what information is, but when they're going to ship it, I would like to think this year, because they did consoles last year. They could do the controller this year. And then the rumors are suggesting that we might get Xbox hardware next year. So something like that in some capacity. Al Chapper says, I've been hearing a lot about Apple and some of the other companies announcing new accessibility things as part of the Xbox accessibility awareness. What has Microsoft announced in terms of accessibility? So I feel like they announced things earlier this year. Microsoft did hardware-related things, right? They have the accessibility console controller. It's a big, large, white, flat thing. And then you have the different like doodads, I don't lack of better terms, widgets that plug into them with various control functionality for accessibility. I feel like they announced that earlier this year, though, and not necessarily on like this past week. So Darkson says, "Hi Brad, can you please provide any insight into why Stardock doesn't currently put their apps in the Microsoft Store?" Absolutely can. I had to take a little break there to get a drink of water. That's why there's that awkward cut. Anyways, so a lot of this actually falls on me. So a couple things, because this is my entire team that does all this. You got to remember Stardock is 30 plus years old. So Stardock rolls a lot of its own stuff because of the necessity that when they needed certain things, they didn't exist. Like activation servers, license key generation, the whole gamut, the whole product lifecycle. Now, some of these things may have existed, decades ago, but they weren't mass commercialized. It wasn't like today where you can just go and grab an API from a company and pay for it monthly. So Stardock has this entire infrastructure for app updates, all that stuff. And so putting it in the Microsoft Store, there was a couple challenges initially, right? First, when I got started there, this wasn't really an option because you had to use Microsoft's payment platform, which meant you paid their fees and everything else. And so do we really want to reconstruct our apps to do all that? Now, I believe that is an issue that we can get around now. However, I still believe that paid applications, the default experience was 5 activations per device. All of our apps support 5 activations, but to help spread out our pricing skew, some are cheaper and then some are more expensive with 5. And so putting things into the Microsoft Store just realistically creates another avenue that we have to support, maintain, and do everything through, because I don't quite know enough about if we sell through the Microsoft Store, do we have to use their process for app updates, which again, not a big deal, but it's just another thing we have to consider, another thing we have to maintain. And it boils down to, I don't know if there's enough traction in the Microsoft Store to justify the effort that we would put in to maintain those applications. There's a lot of traffic. A lot of our effort goes to driving traffic directly to our site, and we do fairly well at doing that. And so to shift that model, it's not the business risk, it's the maintenance, because we ship a lot of app updates, right? We maintain and support our products very, very well. I mean, people will always say, no, you stopped update. Like Start 11, we've shipped dozens of updates last year, and we're on track to do that this year. Fences, we ship a lot of updates. Multiplicity, we ship a lot of updates. So it's not just putting an app there, it's then putting there, having to maintain it, update the .exe, making sure everything is good, making sure reviews are there. And it's just, I hate to say it, but it's just a lot of work, and we don't know, we don't have the justification yet that the sales would be enough to justify that effort. Now, if somebody can prove me wrong, I'm happy to start assigning and like getting that process rolling for us. But as of right now, we don't hear enough requests from our customers that say, hey, put this in the store. And so that is why. I mean, it's a very fair and good question. And Widja Assassinados or something, it says, "Hi Brad, how is gaming on the treadmill going?" Well, hopefully it's going to be going better. For those who are wondering what he's talking about, well, actually, if you crop out to this view, this thing right here, that is the treadmill. It's actually I need to adjust my camera here, but this is the treadmill. So it is right there. And so I game on this TV with this Xbox controller on the Xbox Series S that is sitting right there. And so I will be playing Doom on this controller, hopefully this weekend, as long as I get time to actually walk on. I cannot run and play Xbox. That is insane. So it goes well. I play a lot of Call of Duty and a lot of Prop Hunt, and that is kind of like the baseline thing that I can do. You have to be a little careful walking on the treadmill because there's some like immersion, I guess is the best way to describe it, where if I start walking my character left or right on the screen, I kind of want to do that on the treadmill, and so it gets a little dicey. If you will. So anyways, wonderful questions this week, guys. It's been like a Debbie Downer. Anytime there's talk of layoffs, it's just not fun. So anyways, hopefully all you had a wonderful week. And as always, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because only BS on this podcast is me.